Hey BookTube friends, it's time to go back to school. So I thought today would be a good time to do the School Days book tag, which was originally created by What Victoria Read. I was tagged to do this by Lady Jane Books, so thank you for tagging me. I know a lot of you just started school this last week, so I thought this would be the perfect time to do it, even though I'm going into my 6th week back at school with students. But yeah, so let's get into these questions. First, Belle, tell us about a book that got you into reading. Well, I don't have one particular book that got me interested in reading, but I will talk about a couple of books that I read in middle school that I feel like were very impactful because I read them at a very formative time in my life. The first one is The Diary of Anne Frank, and especially considering Anne was the same age as me at the time, that really resonated with me and made history come to life. I think it's what got me interested in reading nonfiction, particularly personal historical accounts. The second book that was really moving to me in that same time period was The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. I just feel like this is a timeless classic that still stands the test of time today. Break time. Which book have you most recently had to take a break from or DNF? Well, I have no intention of DNFing this book, but I'm currently reading The Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and this book is extremely graphic and disturbing, which shouldn't be a shocker considering the content. So since we are talking about the Gulag system in the Soviet Union, it goes into great detail about the torture, and the author kind of delves into the psyche of the people who are perpetrating these acts of torture. I'm averaging about 20 pages of this book a day, which is well below what I would normally read in a day, but I do feel like it's a little bit too heavy to read a lot of in one sitting. 20 pages a day seems to give me some time to ruminate on some of the things that he's saying, because I do feel like the author has some pretty significant things to say about good and evil and the human psyche and that sort of thing. So not going to DNF it, but yeah. Lunchtime. Tell us about your favorite book that features food. Well, I can't really think of a favorite book that features food, but I will make an observation. A lot of the young adult romance that I'm purchasing for the library, it has a food angle. Some of the covers and plots actually feature food, so it does seem to be a trend in young adult romance right now. Final bill. Which book have you most recently finished reading? I just finished reading A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole, and this is part of a humorous book club that I'm involved in on Voxer. And I'm kind of disappointed because the only copy I could get was an abridged version. So I'm going to try to see if I can find an unabridged version. But this book is very comedic. It's set in 1960s New Orleans, and the atmosphere is stellar. The cast of characters is very rich, and it was hysterical. It's kind of hysterical in a little bit of a weird way, because our main character is a college graduate, but he is a ne'er-do-well. He can't seem to get his act together. He seems a little bit narcissistic and a bit of a know-it-all, but there also seem to be some mental health issues there, and one of the members of the group actually pointed out that the author commits suicide, and so that kind of makes me look back at this book in a little bit of a different way. When I first started reading it, I thought it was hysterical, and then after another group member, I think it was Faith, after she brought that up in the Voxer group, it really kind of made me look back at the book with a critical eye. But I think this is one that I definitely want to seek out and read in the unabridged version. Staff room. Tell us about a book that you reach for when you need to take a break. I think I've mentioned this before, but the Dresden Files series by Jim Butcher is one that is just pure fun. It doesn't take a lot of brain power for me to keep up with the plot, and it's one that I will read when I just need a break from some of the heavy stuff. Subjects. English. Tell us about a book you studied at school and recommend one you'd like to see added to the curriculum. Well, a lot of the books that I read in school are no longer being read in the curriculum. So I mentioned before The Diary of Anne Frank, The Outsiders, also To Kill a Mockingbird, The Scarlet Letter. I think all of those are great books, and I would like to see some of those added back into the curriculum. Maths. How do you rate books? I no longer rate books because that was one of the things on Goodreads that I kind of labored about, and it gave me anxiety because in my mind there's really no way to consistently rate books when you are rating books in so many different genres. Nonfiction versus fiction, and then young adult versus adult books, and when you're rating, literary fiction versus horror, there are just too many variables there, and it gave me anxiety. So I no longer give ratings, and I no longer really write any reviews on Goodreads either. I just use YouTube as my book review forum, and I just feel like that's a more relaxed, comfortable way of talking about books for me, rather than giving them a numbered rating. Science. What book couple do you think has the best chemistry? I don't really read a ton of romance, but off the top of my head, I guess I will say Claire and Jamie from the Outlander series. That's for you, Judy. My friend Judy is a rabid Outlander fan, so I know she'll be happy with that answer. Geography. Book with a strong sense of world building. Well, I don't read a ton of fantasy, but I will say the Lord of the Rings trilogy really has a great sense of world building for me. That's one that I kind of look back on as the first series that I read that really did that. History. Which 3 historical fiction novels have you most enjoyed? Well, The Revolution of Marina M. by Janet Fitch is one that I've talked a lot about, and I feel like that book did such a phenomenal job of portraying such a complicated, multifaceted conflict in the Russian Revolution, and I just fell in love with the character of Marina, so I can't recommend that one enough. I would also say Poldark by Winston Graham. I love that series. I love the series that was done on PBS. As well, so you can't go wrong with that either. And Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I appreciate that book because I feel like it really gave a voice to a pretty major historical event that a lot of people are unaware of from World War II. Religious studies. What book do you always come back to? The first book I have talked about on this channel before. It is A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom, a Toltec wisdom book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I just feel like this book is a very simple, practical guide for people who are searching for freedom, happiness, love, all of that good stuff. And I do feel like it would be good for someone who maybe has some anxiety or some social anxiety. It's just a very good book. The second one is the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I've always loved the poetry in this, so it is one that I will pick up from time to time. And I also used it when I taught World History 1. It's something that I would read in class because we did have to learn about Taoism. I just found this book very accessible, and it was also good at prompting discussion. PE, show us your biggest book on your TBR. Well, this is a book that I have never successfully finished. I have started to read it multiple times, and then I had to return it to the library. So I purchased my own copy of Stephen King's The Stand, and obviously this is a huge book. It's over 1,000 pages, so at some point this year we will see if I can get to the end of The Stand. Music. Which reading format has the best rhythm for reading? This is going to sound like the Supreme Court trying to create a definition for obscenity, but I know it when I see it. It's not something that I can describe because I feel like it comes in different forms. But yeah, I know it when I see it, and I definitely appreciate it when it's there. And you can tell if a book is written in kind of a stop-start sort of format, or if it's written in a Faulkner-esque sort of way where it creates a little bit of confusion. So I do appreciate hard reads sometimes, but it is nice to get into a reading rhythm and be able to kind of breeze through some books. Drama. Which book do you think has the best ending? I think some of the obvious answers would be titles like Girl on a Train or Sharp Objects. And I know there are books that kind of leave you with great last lines that kind of make you think, and I can't really name any off the top of my head. But yeah, I feel like thrillers, psychological thrillers, some of those books are great at giving you a satisfying ending or an ending that really evokes a strong reaction from you, so you kind of remember those. Art. Tell us which 3 books you think have the best covers. Well, some people in the group read for The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov had a really awesome copy of that book, and I will put a picture of it here. I thought that was just beautiful. I would say any book that has gold accents to it are top notch. And third, a lot of the young adult books have really stepped up the book cover game, and our young people are very visual, so they've had to really step up their game. One book series that I have in mind for a beautiful book cover is it's a Tale of Magic series by Chris Colfer, and I'll pop up some pictures. The pictures don't really do it justice because the copies that I have, they actually have kind of a clear window where a picture is kind of inserted behind that, and so it really has a three-dimensional feel to it. There are also some titles that I'm seeing that have colored outer edges to the pages, and I really like those. I think they are just gorgeous. So there are so many beautiful covers to pick from, but those are just some of the things that are popping out in my mind here. So that was the School Days book tag. I am going to tag 2 channels that I really enjoy watching, and I've never tagged them before, so I really hope they do this tag. But I'm tagging Shannon over at Shannon's Bookish Musings and Music, and also Michelle Lexi. So I hope everyone is having a great day, and maybe I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.